What's up, everybody? This is Fishers of Men. I just got back from seeing Solo, a Star Wars story, and I want to go over a couple things that I liked and didn't like about the film with you guys. I'll kind of do a summary and then go on tangents into specifics as the summary goes along so that everything doesn't seem all disjointed and messed up. I'll do a little bit of editing on that, but overall, hopefully, this flows fairly well. So let's start with this. I thought the movie was okay, like just okay. Not great. I'd probably give the movie like a C overall. Maybe like a 70% if I was gonna do percentages. Probably 3 out of 5 stars if I was gonna do that, which is a D. But it was just okay. Like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And really, with what we're getting from Marvel and things like that now, I expect Star Wars to come out with great movies, not just these average, okay-ish movies. So that's still kind of disappointing to me. It definitely wasn't my least favorite Star Wars movie. It goes to The Last Jedi right now at this point, but it definitely wasn't my favorite either. It definitely wasn't, obviously, was not as good as Empire Strikes Back. It wasn't as good as A New Hope. It wasn't as good as Return of the Jedi. I'm not sure where I would put it in my prequels. I'd have to think about it for a while and consider it for a little longer. And I might make another video a little bit later after everything's had time to settle in my head, placing it and going more into detail about some of the things that would put it in that place. But for now, we'll just stick with this. I do also want to mention the actors real quick because a lot of pressure was probably put on Alden Ehrenreich for this role, and rightly so. Harrison Ford's Han Solo is an iconic character. Everybody knows who Han Solo is, and for Alden Ehrenreich to step in these shoes had to be a very tall order. Ehrenreich does okay-ish. Some of his facial expressions and some of his mannerisms kind of come off as Han Solo-y. The things he says come off as Han Solo-y, but that's just because of writing. I mean, that's not Alden Ehrenreich coming up with Han Solo things to say. His voice is too high. It's not Harrison Ford's low, kind of growly voice. Just overall, he seems like some guy trying to play Han Solo in a fan film that's not very good. I mean, he's very average in his portrayal of Han Solo. And it's going to be tough for whoever wanted to do that role to fill Harrison Ford's shoes. Alden Ehrenreich could have played a different character in a different part of the Star Wars universe, and it could have followed a similar plot to this, and it would have probably been fine. He would have been fine. But him trying to play Harrison Ford just didn't come across super great. Don Glover was okay as Lando. I mean, he hit some of the stuff, but some of the stuff seemed off. It almost seemed like his accent changed in a couple spots. I don't know if that was because of the reshoots that they did, or if that was just me hearing things. But it didn't really work. It didn't do much for me. It was just meh. Honestly, the best actor was, I mean, Woody Harrelson's great, but honestly, my favorite actor was probably the guy that plays Chewie, and we don't even see his face. So, I don't know. It was, like I said, an okay movie. I'm going to say that so many times. Overall, my biggest problem with it was just the fact that the entire movie was unnecessary. I thought they did a fair job staying true to the established characters for the most part, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Overall, it was just a heist movie set in the Star Wars universe with characters we already know. And in my opinion, that shouldn't be enough for a Star Wars movie. Star Wars movies should be a little deeper than that. They should get into the dark versus the light, the good versus the evil aspect. And this one, if you're looking for gray Star Wars, this one did a decent job at staying in the gray Star Wars territory. This is what we're getting now, and we just get okay movies because of it. And I'm probably going to say this multiple times. It was okay. It was fine. I can see, I understand the people that are boycotting it. I understand that, and I totally get it. I'm not happy with the direction Star Wars is going right now either, but I don't feel like Solo really threw politics at us. I don't feel like it really changed anything drastically. I think it was just an okay paint by numbers movie. Now we're going to start getting into the spoilers, so if that's something that you care about, go ahead and click away. I'll wait. It'll be fine. Okay? Are you gone? If you're gone, you're not hearing me. So if you're still here, I assume you're good with it. Okay, so we start off with not an opening crawl, but some blue words that need to be read that pop up as like in sentences. And so these sentences start, and we immediately get something that I disliked about the movie, and that was the word hyperfuel. That's right, the galaxy is fighting over hyperfuel after the fall of the Republic, which is this super valuable, super important material, that they use for ship fuel that was Never mentioned before The Last Jedi, and even then it wasn't called hyperfuel, just fuel. They would run out of fuel even if they weren't in hyperspace. And this brings me to, like I said, the first thing that I really didn't like about the movie. Honestly, it seems like the entire thing was just set up to justify Rian Johnson's plot. And I'm not okay with that. This is something that people are going to point to now to justify how lazy the plot was in The Last Jedi, how it didn't make sense. And they're going to say, well, now it makes sense. There's hyperfuel. But this is something that doesn't exist in any of the other films. It just puts Solo in these shackles that are going to further separate it from its fans that are still pissed about The Last Jedi. So it's a stupid thing. It seems like the whole movie was set up to make hyperfuel a thing. So let me know what you guys think about that. If you guys have seen the movie, let me know what you think about hyperfuel. And if you haven't, does that sound like does it sound like what I'm saying is right to you guys? Does it sound like it was just set up to justify Rian Johnson's movie? I really hope that's. I mean, I assume that's not where they started the story with, but that's sure where it seemed to have gone. So after those, we start off on Corellia, where Han is running deals for this street rat gang kind of a thing, and he's stealing some of this hyperfuel and running away. And he gets back to the gang hideout where he meets up with Quira. I'm gonna keep calling her Quira on accident. Her name is Kira, and they talk about how much this hyperfuel is worth, and that it's enough to buy their freedom or charter a ship or whatever they need to do to get away from this gang and get off the planet. So the leader of this gang is upset that Han's deal went south, and he's gonna kill him. And so Han and Kira, run away and get on a ship. But they get split up, and so Han ends up escaping without her. But he tells her, behind like a glass wall, I'll be back for you. He'll come back for her eventually. And so, in that separate room or whatever, waiting for a ship, he sees some Empire propaganda, and he decides the best way to get a ship to come back to save her will be to join the Empire as a pilot, in which we see him doing absolutely no piloting, which was kind of a bummer. Han piloting a TIE fighter would have probably been, I don't know, I just think that would have been fun to see. It would have been interesting. Anyways, this brings me back to something that I was kind of lukewarm about. So when he's signing up for the Empire, they ask him what his last name is. They ask him who his people are. And he says, I have no people. And so the guy goes, Han Solo. And that's how he gets his name. It's, it's not a big deal, but it's not really something I needed to know. It, kind of cuts into the mystery of who Han is. And that just brings me back to why, I just think this movie was okay. It's unnecessary. We don't need to know exactly who Han is. Han's mystery is something that makes him such a cool character. But this thing was just a nod to the fans, which is okay. But like I said, I'm just mad about it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like that they explained where he got his last name? Do you like that he got it from the Empire? Do you care at all? So moving on, we see Han in a sort of World War I, World War II kind of situation. There's like trenches and things like that, which I really actually enjoyed. It was really gritty, really violent, and really cool. It was the first thing that we saw that was anything like an actual war being fought in Star Wars. You kind of saw it in Rogue One, but that was more like espionage kind of stuff. This was really hardcore. And so he's fighting with the Empire to essentially subjugate whatever planet they're on. And they're going to set up Imperial control. And I really like this part of the movie. I wish the movie had focused on it more. Honestly, I feel like the movie would have worked better overall if it was just about his time in the Empire. You have him be part of a team, and then throughout the movie they all die around him for nothing. And in the end, he realizes that it's better to be alone than to die fighting for anything. You could have people on the team really believe in what the Empire is fighting for, just like the rebels did. So it could really, go get into his aversion to joining the rebellion when he gets to that point in his life, and his aversion to the Empire as well. He saw all his friends die fighting for nothing with the Empire, even though they believed in it, and so he doesn't want to see his rebellion friends die fighting for nothing. And so instead of this, however, they have him meet up with some smugglers who are disguised as troops, and he wants to join them. But they report him to his superior officer, and they have him thrown to the Beast to be eaten. And they say they haven't fed the Beast for 3 days, so it'll make short work of Han. Now, okay, obviously the Beast is Chewie. It was pretty obvious from the time they even said it. And this is how Han met Chewie, or how they're saying that Han met Chewie. I thought it was interesting, and the way they escape is kind of fun. Han speaks to Chewie in his Wookiee language, and they formulate a plan as they fight. But after I left the movie, there were a couple of things that I thought about that really made me like that part a lot less. First off, was Chewie literally eating people? Like, what the heck? Like, Chewie is like this awesome character. He's a great character. Everybody loves him. But he's literally eating people? Way to make the character like freaking insane, guys. Come on. And then second, why did it take Han speaking Chewie's language for Chewie to listen, especially if Chewie can understand Galactic Basic, which Han and probably all the other people that they fed to Chewie spoke. Like later on in the movie, Han talks to Chewie exclusively in Galactic Basic, and Chewie listens to him and understands him. So Chewie was listening to all these people that they fed to him beg for their lives while he was eating them. Like, it's kind of dark, right? I mean, why did he stop just because Han speaks a little Wookiee? That's like, to me, that's like Batman versus Superman. That's a Martha moment right there. It's not as bad, but it's kind of similar and it's kind of weird. Finally, there was never any mention of the life debt or anything like that that would bind Chewie to Han more than just them being friends. I always thought that Chewie owed Han a life debt. Am I wrong about that? Let me know in the comments because I just think it would have been nice to hear about it. Okay, so moving on, he escapes with Chewie and joins this smuggler crew, and they start to pull off this train heist that they show in the trailer. Everything's going pretty well, but then Enfys Nest shows up and complicates things, and in the end, they don't get the score, and everybody else on the team dies except for Han, Chewie, and Woody Harrelson's character, Beckett. Beckett's this character who tells Han multiple times not to trust anybody, which kind of shows where Han gets his attitude in A New Hope, but it's another one of those things that we didn't really need to see. After this job fails, Beckett tells Han that the job they were doing was something they were hired for, and the guy that hired them is going to kill him when he finds out that they didn't finish the job. So they decide to go to the guy and talk to him to try and make things right. And when they find the boss, Han discovers that Kira somehow has gotten in with this gang and is pretty much the boss's right-hand woman. I'm thinking of this further. This is another plot hole that I really don't like. There's no real explanation of how she got in with this gang or how she rose so high within the 3 years that Han's been with the Empire. Like, that's a really fast time to become this boss's right-hand woman from being in the slums of Corellia. So I'm not really sure what happened there, and I don't know if I just missed it. If I did, let me know in the comments. Anyway, they talk with the boss and decide to steal some unrefined coaxium, which is this hyperfuel, from Kessel that they can then take to get refined and then give to the boss, and all their debts will be settled. And the boss agrees and sends Kira with them to make sure they stay on track. Kira takes them to meet Lando, who's gambling at the table like we see in the trailers. Han joins this table and gambles with Lando and actually loses because Lando cheats. Lando in this scene also calls Han Han, which I thought was a fun callback to the original trilogy, and it sort of made it like an inside joke between them that Lando always calls Han Han. But it's also another one of those pointless things that we didn't really need a movie to explain. It doesn't really matter. Kira then talks to Lando and convinces him to join their quest and promises him a cut of the money when it's over. Also during this scene, Clint Howard, Ron Howard's brother, has a cameo, which I enjoyed because I think Clint Howard's hilarious. Somebody also mentions that Beckett is the man that killed Aurra Singh, which I thought was really interesting. More importantly, we meet Lando's droid, who is actually really funny. And let's get into this real quick because I'm not sure that there's a better place to talk about it. Some of the discussion about Solo has been regarding some of the things that writers and others have said about the droid and about Lando's sexuality, and these aren't a big deal in the film at all. The droid's pro-droid rights stance is honestly played out for comic relief. At least that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like it's some sort of political message that's being shoved down your throat. It feels like it's something that results in some really funny dialogue and actions, actually. And Lando's sexuality isn't a big deal either. On the way to Kessel, the droid is talking to Kira and states that Lando loves her, but the droid doesn't feel love to Lando back. And this whole scene is done in kind of a way that feels like it's just for laughs, like the droid just misunderstands Lando. The whole droid rights thing and pansexual Lando, to me, is just writers saying stuff. And while they wrote the story, unless it's explicitly stated in the films or books at this point, I'm not really going to go on what they have to say. They're the ones pressing the agenda, but Solo really doesn't seem to. Now moving on, they get to Kessel and steal the hyperfuel stuff, and while they're escaping, the droid causes a diversion by removing the restraining bolts off of all the droids in the area. And this causes a droid rebellion that's actually really funny, and then that leads to the droids releasing all of the restraints on the humans and causes a slave rebellion. So while all this craziness is going on, they escape, but Lando's droid dies. And this is one moment where you actually see Lando really cares about her. But it doesn't seem like it's in a way that's like a sexual love. It's more like a sisterly love. And so I don't, I don't get why the sexuality thing needs to be a big deal in Star Wars, but apparently it's a big deal in everything now. Anyway, back to the plot. They get away, but the droid had the navigational information in her system, and they need to make the Kessel Run very quickly because the unrefined coaxium they have is very unstable. And if it's there too long in the ship, it's going to overheat and explode, and they're all going to die. So they get away after they pull the navigational data from the droid and integrate her with the ship and take like a dangerous shortcut. This is another thing that I thought was strange about the movie. Lando, after he integrates her data with the ship, says she's a part of the ship now. And I feel like it's strange to even put that in. It's strange to incorporate that droid into the ship, especially if she's never brought up again ever. Like it's weird to me. Anyway, after some fancy piloting, they make it to the refinement station, making the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, if you round down, Han says. At the refinement station, Enfys Nest actually finds them and tells them that this gang that they're stealing for is terrible, and Enfys doesn't want to hurt them or their team, and Enfys Nest doesn't want to take the coaxium and sell it for themselves. They just want to hurt this gang that has hurt them and many other people throughout the galaxy. And Han sees this and agrees and comes up with a plan to get away and not give them what they want and all this other stuff. This brings me to the final thing that I have a problem with. And it's part of Han's story in A New Hope that he goes from being this loner smuggler to somebody who really cares about people and a cause. And that this story kind of hurts his arc in A New Hope in the original trilogy because it already shows him as somebody who cares about people and somebody who really doesn't need to grow quite as much. He still has trust issues, but even those don't really seem like that big of a deal. His main problem in the original trilogy is really an empathy problem. And the story kind of hurts that image as this rogue, selfish smuggler that we're supposed to see him change from in A New Hope, at least in my opinion. So back to the story, Beckett decides that Solo's plan is too risky and leaves. I don't want to really get into the specifics because it's not that big of a deal, but in the end, after some double crosses, Beckett actually comes back and betrays Han. They beat the boss and win. Yay! Then Han and Chewie head out to load their hyperfuel stuff, and Kira says she's right behind them. She just has to grab some of the valuables that the boss had lying around. And Han then talks with Enfys Nest, who tries to get them, Han and Chewie, to join her little rebellion. And Han obviously says, no, I'm not going to ever join a rebellion. What are you, crazy? He decides to go to Tatooine with Chewbacca to do work for some big gangster that they keep talking about, which is obviously Jabba. At the end, Kira is shown talking to a figure in a hood about what happened. And this figure is then revealed to be Darth Maul, who tells her to meet him on Dathomir. I know, that's crazy, it's weird, and for a lot of people, the last time they saw Darth Maul was in The Phantom Menace when he died. They didn't watch the Clone Wars show and they didn't watch Rebels, so because they're cartoons. And I mean, my dad, if he watches Solo, is gonna have no idea why Darth Maul is still there. Zero clue. So many people are gonna have zero clue because not that many people have. First off, Disney XD, I think Rebels was on. I don't have Disney XD. I haven't seen Rebels. I watched the Clone Wars on Netflix. That's how I've seen that. So, a lot of people are going to have no idea how Darth Maul is alive, how he's there, how he fits into the whole story. Honestly, I don't know why they put him in at the end. That just sets up more Solo movies, which, again, I don't really need more Solo movies, especially if they're going to show Darth Maul, because Han and Darth Maul can't interact. Han can't think the Force is a real thing before A New Hope, because he says in A New Hope that it's not a real thing. I guess maybe they'd make a spin-off Darth Maul movie or even a show with Kira and Darth Maul, something like that. That would make more sense. But we already see how Darth Maul ends, and we've seen a bunch of the stuff between episode 2 and 3, in the Clone Wars show, and we've seen him in Rebels. So I don't know why we need more of Darth Maul in the movies. Now that said, Darth Maul is one of my favorite characters. He's a super cool Sith, and there's videos all over YouTube about what would have happened if the Phantom Menace was good and Darth Maul survived and he was in episode 2 and 3 and all this stuff. And that would have been super, it'd have been super cool, but it's wasted potential at this point. And so I don't know why they're bringing him in a one-off Solo movie, unless they're going to make more Solo movies with Darth Maul in it, which, again, I don't think they should do. That said, I do want to see more of Darth Maul on the big screen, so we'll see how they play it. Anyways, that's pretty much it, and that's kind of a rundown of the story and some of the things I had problems with and the things that I liked. And honestly, most of the things I liked were just like small nods and references to other things within the universe. And the things that I didn't like were some of the plot holes and some of the things that it kind of messes up for future movies. But honestly, I don't think it messed up that much. Like, it didn't change anybody's character drastically. It didn't hurt anything in the future, as far as I can tell, at least right now. overall, like I said, it was an okay movie. I mean, it takes us to where we're going in A New Hope, and we already know that. So we know Han and Chewie aren't going to die. We know all the other characters are expendable. We know Darth Maul's not going to die until when he dies in Rebels. So I don't know. It was a safe movie. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. It felt more like a Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi did to me, but it still wasn't amazing. So, anyways, that's my review. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Have you guys seen it? If you have, did you enjoy it? Did you like the things I liked and dislike the things that I disliked? Were there other things that you liked that maybe I didn't talk about or disliked that I didn't talk about? Also, do you hope that they make more Solo movies? Do you hope that we get more Darth Maul movies or something? Do you think maybe that's what, like, if they make a Kenobi movie, do you think that's what that could be about? Is Kenobi fighting that this group that Darth Maul is apparently leading? Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Again, I am Fishers of Men. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to. If not, that's fine. Go ahead and check out some of my other videos if you want to. If nothing there appeals to you in my other videos, check back in a couple months. Maybe you'll see something then. Again, I'm Fishers of Men, and I will talk to you guys later.